on, decided to start that, or how that's going for you. I will admit, and it's not to toot my own horn here, it's more to encourage you, to excite you about doing something like this for God. But traditionally, I've always just gone without food. It's much, like I've always felt it was easier. But this year I decided that maybe that was a little too easy because it's something that I'm accustomed to. So instead decided that I would leave the table not full. And I am telling you, it is way harder than not eating at all. Just shutting down your stomach and just being like, nope, that's it. It is a little easier for me than to sit there and be like, I'm going to have a quarter plate of what I usually eat. And then when I take that last bite, it's just like, I want more. And it's like, now I need to stop. Now I need to walk away from this table hungry. And it's been a lot harder because in that moment, my body's just like, I'm not full yet. You have always filled me up, and I'm not feeling full right now, so why aren't you continuing on? And my mind is like, because of Jesus. My heart is like, because of Jesus. And it's been a lot harder. And so that inspired my sermon speaking about hunger. And that's what we're talking about today. I just thought it was very fitting. Now, I will admit that 2 years ago, when they were in the process of considering whether you guys liked me or not, they asked me to send in a sermon. This was it. Of course, I've made some revisions to make it more applicable to today, but this is the one I sent in. But it's cool because none of the review committee's here this morning, so they won't even know. But this is what I sent them as something that was on my heart. I just wanted to let you guys know. So we're talking about hunger. I find it interesting that we hunger at all, right? Just because God created hunger. We experience hunger because God created food, right? So the way he designed it all is that we would eat food, and then if we went without, we would feel hungry, right? And that's the way God designed it. So I just pondered that for a moment. I was just like, it's interesting. I mean, God could have made it so that, I don't know, we were like leaves and just needed a little bit of sunlight or something, right? He didn't. He created food as something enjoyable, something beautiful, something for us to enjoy, but he paired it with the idea that we would need it. That we would hunger, that a hunger would begin to grow inside of us, right? And it's a beautiful thing because it's a reminder that we depend on him, right? As the provision and creator of food. If you get down to the basics, at least back in the Garden of Eden, they waited for trees to grow food, right? They went to go pick food that was there. And God is the one who planted those trees, made them grow, made them produce fruit. And so they had to completely rely on that whole process to be able to fulfill what they were feeling. And God completely designed it that way. Then came the fall of mankind, and it says, by the sweat of your brow will you work the ground. And so we had to work for food, but it was still a complete reminder. I mean, plant all you want. The one who makes that grow is God. The one who sends the rain is God, right? The one who, sure, we work it, but really it's all God. And it's a constant reminder of how we need God. I don't know. Next time you get hungry, you've missed a meal or something, you've traveled far, you're just like, oh, my schedule's all off and I'm feeling the grumblies. Just remind yourself that God created that as a sign of dependence for him, as you need God, right? And I love that Jesus says, man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God, right? We don't just need food. We weren't just created physical. We need spiritual food as well. And food, down to its basics, is beautiful and incredible and tasty, and there's so many different kinds, and I was trying to think of my favorites, and one of my favorites is definitely my mom's lasagna. My mom's lasagna, she does not use ricotta cheese or she only uses Parmesan cheese. Yes, that means it's like a $50 lasagna because Parmesan is not cheap. And since that's the only cheese she uses, and since it's usually in more of a powdery form, you have to use a heck of a lot more of it. And then she makes something called the bechamel, which is like this cream sauce, which she told me the secret is that you never stop stirring. simmering for 45 minutes. And I'm just like, that's just the cream. How long does it take to do everything else? But when you eat this, you don't want to get up from the table. And when you get up from the table, you feel like your belly's just going to rip open and everything's going to just, because you filled your, anyways. I think of how delicious and wonderful food is, and I realize only God could have created that. And along with it, again, he created hunger. It's amazing also that in our Father, at the very beginning, it asks to receive our daily bread, our daily sustenance. And then, again, paired with that we don't need just bread to survive, that very sentence, give us, Lord, our daily bread, is not just meaning in the physical provision, but also in the spiritual provision, saying, dear God, give my soul, give my spirit what I need to be alive today. Ooh, now you're going to pray the Our Father a little bit differently. I hope. Anyways, as you realize that, it's like, dear God, please feed my soul today. Okay, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Back with Adam and Eve, and I imagine that's the way my kids have seen it. Now they're beginning to grow and things have changed. But it's amazing to me how kids can just say, when's dinner? and sit at that table and just wait for food to appear without any full recognition of how it magically appears before them, right? As parents, we understand that we have to plan our grocery trip, and then we'll most likely forget something. So it's usually a 2-trip process, right? And we make our list, we go there, somehow we still forget something off our list, we go home, we get ready to cook, we send someone else, if not ourselves, to go back, pick up that final item, come back, cook it. So we had to go to work to make money, to go to the grocery store twice, pay that gas, get that food ready, cook it, and then you have nice clean dishes, so someone had to do the dishes, and someone will have to do the dishes afterwards, and you place this food that you've cooked and slaved for in front of them, and then they're just like, you don't even get a thank you, right? They don't understand the whole process of how this food magically appeared. They simply say, Mom, I'm hungry. Where's food? Right? And they have this natural dependency, this natural, you need to fulfill what's going on in my belly, right? But in the same way, it was with God. And that's a good thing, is that we don't fully understand how the world rotates and the cosmos work and how God named every single star out there, but He has designed it all perfectly. And children just to say, hey, I need food. And in the same way, it's a beautiful thing when you can go to God and be like, hey, God, I need your provision. We try to figure it all out, and at some point we think we're mature enough that we have it all figured out and that we're actually responsible for it all when you're not. Again, God gave you the ability to work. He allowed you to find favor to get a job. He allowed you to have the mental capacity to prepare the food. It's all God. It's still all God. And it's a beautiful thing when we have just a complete dependency on God. In the same way that kids have dependency on us. He designed it that way. Adam and Eve didn't know how trees grew, what made them grow, and how the fruit appeared, and why it tasted so good, and you know, how it was just there. God just provided, and they depended, and I don't even think they fully realized how it all worked. It was just a beautiful and very innocent thing, and you need to remind yourself of that. Just how important, how beautiful it is to depend on God. We like to be in control of everything, and that causes so much stress. Oh my goodness, it causes so much anxiety because things are never in our control, ever. The more you try to hold on to it, the more it seems to slip through your fingers. But the one who does have control over everything is God. And so we just need to depend a little bit more on Him. Oh, it's so much easier. All I need to do is depend on God, and He takes care of all the rest. Why do I got to worry about all the rest, right? All right, we're going to take a look at Moses. I'm going through Exodus chapter 15, a little bit anyways. And so I just want to say that, I don't know how I've written on there. I know I added more notes to my notes, and then I didn't print off my current notes. So I just take a look at the situation of what was going on. Moses finally gets Israel to escape Egypt, okay? Now, in Egypt, as much as they were slaves, they had food. Right? The Egyptians gave them what they needed in order to sustain life and continue to be good working slaves, right? And now they've left all that, and they're in something just known as like the wilderness. And I don't imagine in the last 400 years they knew how to go out and hunt and get food and water and fend for themselves because they've just been subjugated for so long, right? And so they're out, and as you read through your Bible and read through all the stories, you hear them grumbling all the time. Where are we going to get water? Where are we going to get food? Where are we going to get this? Oh, Moses, you led us into this. It would have been better if we stayed in Egypt. It would have been better if we died. And don't forget that they just came out of the plagues. The plagues weren't pretty. Let's dig into it. So I'm going into Mara, which means bitter. And it's this place that they found after leaving the wilderness, and they started getting thirsty, right? I don't know if you've ever gone camping and tried to bring your own water. How much can you actually bring? If you're like, I did the whole portage thing, and it's like, should I be bringing water? And you realize, no, even like 2, 3, 4 liters of water weighs a stinking ton. You don't want to be carrying that through the forest. Instead, you want some kind of filtration or purifying process when you're out there to find water, because it is just... So if you can imagine that they tried to bring their own water and it would only last a certain amount of time. And so they get thirsty in the same way that they get hungry. And it's amazing because God is the one who created that. It was there at Mara that the Lord set before them the following decree as a standard to test their faithfulness to him. He said, if you will listen carefully to the voice of the Lord your God and do what is right in his sight, obeying his commands and keeping all his decrees, then I will not make you suffer any of the diseases I sent on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you. I'd written more in my notes. Let me read it from my notes. Starting in verse 22, then Moses led the people of Israel away from the Red Sea, and they moved out into the desert of Shur. They traveled in this desert for 3 days without finding any water. That's usually your limit. When they came to the oasis of Mara, the water was too bitter to drink, so they called the place Mara, which means bitter. Then the people complained, and they turned against Moses. What are we going to drink? They demanded. So Moses cried out to the Lord for help, and the Lord showed him a piece of wood. Moses threw it into the water, and this made the water good to drink. It was there at Mara that the Lord set before them the following decree. And there you go. So you have them escaping Egypt, leaving out, and they've drunk what they could carry, and now they're looking for water. And a day passes, and they're looking for water, and the second day passes. You know, you're looking at your friend, and he's got his wineskin filled with water. You're squirting it, and you're just kind of like, I finished mine. Are you drinking all that? Do you think you can share? You get to day 3, and then everyone else is kind of holding on to their, last little bit of what's in their wineskin. It's just like, I'm not sharing this with anyone. This is mine. And they finally run out of everything. And it's like, oh boy, what do we do? And so it amazes me that God, created that situation. He brought them there to finally see water. Right? And it's like, yes, we can now finally. And God's like, no, that's not how it's going to work. You need to depend on me more than you need water. But God's the one who made them thirsty. He's the one who made them not find water for 3 days. He's the one who built all that up inside of them and then brought them and is like, let's have this conversation. If you listen to me, if you follow me, if you depend on me, you won't go through everything that you saw happen in Egypt. And I'm throwing what happened in Egypt in there because if you remember some of the plagues, you'll find them in chapter 9 and 10 of Exodus. Okay, let me just hit on 2 important ones. Verse 6, and I think that's Exodus 9, and then I think it's chapter 10 for 15. I can't remember which one fits where. It's in there, 9 and 10 of Exodus. And the Lord did just as he had said. The next morning, all the livestock of the Egyptians died, but the Israelites didn't lose a single animal. So if you can consider that when you enjoy meat, and God created a plague, all livestock, all their source of that meat, protein there, died, except the one that belonged to Israel, right? But when they left, it's not like they can say, hey, cow, come along with me while we got an army of Egyptians chasing after me. So it's not like they can bring things with. They brought a little bit, but not much. And so you look at the fact that Israel just witnessed the death of all livestock. Then, after the hail and brimstone falling from the sky, verse 15, Janice is trying to find it, I'm sorry. For the locusts covered the whole country and darkened the land. They devoured every plant in the fields and all the fruit on the trees that had survived the hailstorm. Not a single leaf was left on the trees and plants throughout the land of Egypt. Guys, everything they needed to eat was gone. All livestock, every plant. Have you found it, Janice? It's there? Okay, so was it Exodus 9 for verse 6 and then 10 for 15, or is 15 still in 9? No, I wasn't sure. I just know I went through Exodus 9 and 10. So it's 10. Okay. So there you go. Exodus 10 for the locusts. Verse 15. There you go. Excellent. So all of Israel just watched all food disappear. Now, remember the first plague there, other than the snakes, like the first signs, the rivers turned from water to blood. And they were able to go and get water, but Egypt was not. And so they were without water and without food, and it's under these conditions that they left. Okay? And so when Moses takes them out, they're like, this is the relationship that we've had with God, because we haven't been able to practice. Remember that Moses is the one who said, hey, Pharaoh, can you let my people go out and worship? Well, let them worship here. No. We need to go out of here. No, you can't do that. Right? Moses' original request was for Israel to worship God out of Egypt. Okay? That's what he was looking for. And so that leads me to believe how much worship, how much following could they do in Egypt with God as a slave. It's not like you can say, hey, right now I got to do God worshiping time. I'm not going to carry your stone for you. You get whipped really bad, I imagine, right? It wasn't on their own will. They were subjugated, okay? So their connection with God has been kind of lacking in the last 400 years as slaves. And so they finally get taken out, but what they know of God, he is terrifying. He just killed all our supply of food, okay? So just kind of the basis of that. Okay? And so when God was saying, you are not going to suffer what I did to Egypt. You're different. I am treating you different. But you need to listen to me. Okay? And then after the whole Mara incident, God leads them to Elam, which is another place. And it was cool because there were date trees, and they produced food. So God brought them to a place where they were able to stock up on water and food after he gave them that promise. Okay? You guys need to listen to me. You need to be following me, and I will be your provision. I will give you what you need to sustain yourself. But God waited until they were hungry before he made that discussion with them, right? And he does the same thing with us at times. He brings us to a place of hunger to remind us that we need him. He didn't just keep them completely filled all the time. He allowed hunger to grow, right? So Exodus 15:27 says, then they came to Elam, where there were 12 springs of water and 70 date palms, and they camped there beside the waters. So he brought them to food. Except when you start then in Exodus 16, and I've calculated this as about 45 days later. Verse 1, then they set out from Elam, and all the congregation of the sons of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elam and Sinai. On the 15th day of the second month after their departure from the land of Egypt, the whole congregation of the sons of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness, which is frustrating because God just finished sending you from a place with a whole bunch of water and dates to eat and let you grow hungry and said, all you need to do is depend with me. And yet they grumbled against Moses again. The sons of Israel said to them, would that we had died by the Lord's hand in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat, when we ate bread to the full. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. Wow. It's amazing how the second they experienced a little bit of hunger, their focus changed from anything spiritual to everything physical. They craved food so badly. So God has taken them 45 days out of Egypt to reach a point of no water and no food. And they're like, you brought us out here to die. We were better out there being slaves. At least we had pots of meat. At least we had bread, all the bread we could want, right, to our full. Right? We want that full feeling. They were feeling incredibly hungry. So again, I like the idea that God brings hunger on purpose, right? Just like I said at the beginning of all this, God created hunger. But he created hunger as a reminder, as the one who truly feeds you is him. And Israel needed to learn this, to let go of every other, like they were dependent on Egypt to feed them, and they were subjugated. And God's like, no. Be my people. Let me take care of all you need. And yet God created that hunger in them to try and teach them. It amazes me especially in this side of the planet, how a lot of people can live a life of shallow relationship with God. Okay? None at all or very shallow. And I ask the question, why? How do you get to that state? And it's because on this side of the planet, we're fairly rich. We're fairly well off. And so when things around us have been, we feel like we worked for, rather than it has been provided to us by God, our mentality changes and our hunger changes. We don't hunger for God as much. We're like, oh, he brought Israel's struggle so that they would be reminded that they needed him. We live very well here, and so we have our home, and food comes in, and we have our routines and stuff we feel like we're providing for ourselves, and because of that, we don't pay attention to our hunger and how it should be there and how we need to hunger for God. And so I truly believe that our depth of relationship with God is completely based on our hunger. So last week we said, remain in me and I will remain in you. And we said, James, draw near to me and I will draw near to you. It is all based on your desire. It is all based on your hunger. Today's sermon, I entitled it here, Hunger. If you have a bulletin, it says, protect your hunger, because that's what today is about. It's about paying attention to your hunger and making sure you protect it, because it is incredibly important that you have it. It's incredibly important that you hunger for the things of God. So I'm going to give you a bunch of points on hunger now. The longer you go without food, the more you crave it. Okay? So your tummy gets rumbling, you get those cramps. That lasts for about 3 days. After that, your hunger turns inwards and starts eating the reserves in your body. Once the time period is finished where it's done eating everything inside your body in reserve, then you start experiencing pain. Like deep pain because of your hunger. But, generally speaking, the longer you go without, the more you hunger. Spiritually speaking, it's amazing how the more we focus, the less we focus on like the spiritual, the more we pay attention to our bodies. It's true. The less focus you have on God, the more you're paying attention to your body, thinking that you need to do what it wants. And you forget the fact that we were created body, soul, and spirit. And that it's incredibly important that we not just feed our bodies, but it is equally important that we feed our souls. Again, like I said with our daily bread, dear Lord, give me my daily provision, not just sustenance for my physical part, but I need to grow in the spiritual as well. And so there's a direct correlation because believe it or not, but the closer you are to God, the more you hunger for God, the less food you need. Now, I'm not just saying that. I'm going to prove it to you biblically, okay? Because when you are incredibly close to God, hunger becomes a side note. You're completely depending on him, and somehow he begins to fill you. Exodus chapter 34, and this is when Moses goes up and he's getting the 10 Commandments ready, and he's having 40 days of conversation with God, which is incredible. Lucky guy. Verse 28. So Moses was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights. And here's the key, and I underlined it and bolded it for you. Without eating bread or drinking water. 40 days of not drinking water. Have you ever tried that? You would die. You wouldn't make it that far. You would dehydrate, pass out, and then die. Okay? But here you have Moses completely in the presence of God. So like I said, the more you focus on the spiritual, it's amazing how the less the body is important. So much so that he did not eat for 40 days, did not drink for 40 days. And I don't think it bothered him at all. He wrote on the tablets the words of the covenant, the 10 Commandments. And when Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hand, he was unaware that his face had become radiant. He glowed in the dark. That's what I like to tell my kids. Okay? He literally glowed to the point that people who saw him recognized, well, something's going on here. This isn't normal. Okay? He glowed. He was lit up by the presence of God so much that he radiated light. That's insane. Awesome. Okay. He became unaware that his face had become radiant from speaking with the Lord. Aaron and all of Israelites looked at Moses, and behold, his face was radiant, and they were afraid to approach him. He spends incredible close time with God and realizes that the body's just really not all that important. A complete dependency on God is. He sustains you in every possible way. It's amazing, though, how as we walk away from being close to God, the more we pay attention to the hunger pangs, anyway, of our body. And the spiritual becomes less and less important. And your connection with God gets weaker and weaker and weaker. You can't help it, right? Because now you're so focused on, I need to feed my physical self, that you forget about the spiritual side of things. It's important that we don't do that. Back to hunger points. Hunger can be satisfied with different things. So if you think of a reservoir, I don't know, a container, an empty container, depending on what you fill it with, means that there's going to be less room for other things. It's true. I wrote this down, but I think of a person who's incredibly into sports, right? And he has all the statistics memorized. You know, this person scored a goal. That means he's got 314 this season. I wish that was the case, but whatever. They have all these statistics memorized because it's their passion, because it's their love. And as they fill themselves with all these statistics and times and memorizing all of this just because of a passion out of it, they have less room for other things. Let's say like science facts or history facts, or they've picked on something. And so what has begun to fill them leaves less room for other things. I like telling this story. It's my Wendy's story. I was working far away from home, and generally when I started work, I did not want to stop until I finished. I watched and laughed as all the other people answered their phone and then were set back 20 minutes and or broke for lunch and then came back tired and didn't want to work as hard. And I was like, ha, ha, ha. And I would just work. Once I became focused, that's all I could do, and I would work until it was done. And so you get to 5, 6 o'clock and call wifey and say, hey, hon, I'm on the way home. I'm sorry it's a little bit later today. I know you've made dinner. I'm on the way. But your tummy's grumbling. Finally, you've realized, and so you're getting, you still got like another hour of driving to go, and you pass by this beautiful red sign that says Wendy's. And underneath, there's this beautiful bacon mushroom melt. Double patty, just melting and oozing, and you're just like, ah. And you're like, why? I didn't have lunch today. And I still got another hour on the road before I finally make it home for dinner. So you ponder, you're almost about to pass the drive, and you're like, you pull in, it's like, oh, I'd love to have that Baconator and the mushroom melt, but no, I have to eat dinner tonight. So I'm going to order that bacon mushroom melt. Okay? And you enjoy, oh, it tastes so good. And you get home. And then your wonderful wife, who's slaved away making you a wonderful dinner, places it before you, except for some weird reason, you're not wolfing it down. You're eating it. You're enjoying it. But it's like, this isn't the kind of man who's been skipped lunch and just came home after all day and is, hun, why aren't you eating? That's what I was trying to avoid. I was trying to look like I was like just wolfing it down, but I'm totally busted. totally busted. I'll kind of stop by Wendy's along the way. Right? And shame. Oh, the shame. She's like, but you knew I made dinner. I was just so hungry. And so because I had a burger, and I stopped myself from having 2. Okay? I only had 1. But it changed my appetite completely. I wasn't able to fully enjoy what my wife had prepared for me. And so in the same way, it is incredibly important that we protect our hunger for God. In the same way, if we fill our things with distractions in the world, we get slowly full. Instead of 100% hunger for God, it might be like, but this is my distraction and I really enjoy it and it makes me feel a whole bunch better. So, what's 10% of Facebook? Ooh, or social media in general, or what's 10% of the second you begin to fill yourself with something else, you're not at 100% capacity of hunger, right? You can go home like I did and still eat, but there's something a little off. There's something a little bit different. You're not wolfing it down. It's just the fact. This is why it's so important that we protect our hunger. Proverbs 27:7 says, "One who is full loathes honey." I love honey, but I still can't disagree with that. "But to one who is hungry, everything bitter is sweet." I don't like salt and vinegar chips. I think people who use white vinegar as a food product are crazy. It's a cleaning product. It's very clearly a cleaning product. Okay? And yet when a craving comes and I feel like I need chips and I go to the cupboard and all that's left is salt and vinegar, it's just like, I will absolutely grab a couple and eat them anyways. I don't like this. But I'm hungry and I really felt like chips. It's true. And when you're completely full, okay, someone can make the most beautiful dessert and place it before you, but when you are so full of Mama's lasagna that you're scared to stand up because it's going to rip your belly open, even that dessert is just like, no. I can't fit anything else, right? It's true. One who is full loathes honey, and the one who is hungry, to one who is hungry, everything bitter is sweet, right? And that completely is telling you need to protect your hunger for God. You can't be filling it with other things. You can't be even partially full of other things, because every little bit that you fill your reservoir with is a little less of God you're making room for. And it's cool, right? You can still say, well, I got 80% relationship with God. But how much better is it when you completely hunger for God? Draw near to me and I will draw near to you. Remain in me and I will remain in you. Our relationship with God is completely based off of our hunger for Him. Distract yourself with other things, it becomes less appealing. You fill yourself with other things, then it's like, you've got no time for God. I've got time to read my Bible. What am I going to read my Bible? I've got no time to pray to God. What am I going to... You truly become full of other things. This is, again, why it's so important. You can debate this both ways. For someone who likes to fill themselves with other things, you watch TV, you look at social media, you YouTube, TikTok, look at funny things, read books, everything else, Then you go to read your Bible. Oh, so hard, kind of boring. How do you go through all the genealogies? You start reading your Bible, it's just not as appealing, okay? But you feed yourself with God on a regular basis. You make yourself hungry for God. You read the Bible. I'm telling you, if you were in solitary confinement and you had nothing but to stare at cracks in a wall all day long, and at the end of the week I brought you a Bible, you'd be like, something to engage my mind. Woo! You'd be reading that like, woo, right? Am I wrong? Come on. I'm going to get an amen in this crowd. It's true. So when you hunger for, and you don't distract, you don't fill yourself with other things, God's not boring. He's super exciting. You read miracles that happen. It's like, this isn't even just like a fictional book. This is reality. This actually happened. Like, how cool would it be to see a fire cloud coming down, protecting me from an army who wants to murder me? And that's God. Woo! Wow, that's kind of cool. You keep reading, right? It is so important we protect our hunger for God. Boom. I hope I'm drilling that into you. Revelation chapter 3. And this is the whole Wendy's thing, okay? Filling yourself with other things. And not being fully hungry for God. Revelations 3, I'm starting in verse 15. People are flipping, looking at their phones. I know your words. You are neither cold, your works, sorry. I know your works. You are neither cold nor hot. Would that you were either cold or hot. So because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I'm going to spit you out of my mouth. For you say, I am rich, I have prospered, and I need nothing, not even realizing that you are wretched, pitiable, poor, blind, and naked. I counsel you to buy from me gold refined by fire, so that you may be rich, and white garments, so that you may clothe yourself, and the shame of your nakedness may not be seen. and salve to anoint your eyes so that you may see. He's talking about the condition of people's hearts, that they're not like on fire for God. They're not totally hungry for God. They haven't, it's love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Ooh, that's pretty intense. There's a whole sermon right there. But loving him with all of who you are, or loving him just, a bit, or not loving him at all. And so God's there being like, jeepers, I wish it was you either loved me completely or you didn't love me at all. That's easier to deal with, except you're kind of just this lukewarm feeling smack dab in the middle. And you know what happens? I'm going to spit you out anyways. I'm spitting you out. You think that you've provided for yourself. You think that you're rich. You think that you have. You think that, you're living the life. And instead, you don't even realize it. But you're pitiable, wretched, naked. This is the way God's describing their spirituality. Because they've based their relationship on God and didn't realize their dependence on him. They thought they depended on themselves. And so, because of their lacking hunger, they had poor relationship with God. And there's God telling you, my goodness, you're wretched, pitiable, poor, blind, and naked. And you don't even realize it. You don't even realize that that's your state. Do you see how important having hunger is? Oh, this is a perfect sermon after, after talking about fasting, right? How important it is that we hunger. It is a beautiful thing. God created it. It needs to be there. We need to allow that to grow. Verse 19, those whom I love, I reprove and discipline, so be zealous. Zealous is an important word there. Okay, I underlined it for you and bolded it. Zealous. I'm going to take a moment to define that in a moment. So be zealous and repent. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and eat with him, and he with me. I wonder what they get to eat there. The one who conquers, I will grant him to sit with me on my throne, as I also conquered and sat down with my Father on his throne. Zaleo is the word for zealous. I put down the Hebrew writing up there. I can't even begin to. I didn't finish that class in Bible college. I had to do it online. It was hard. It was really hard to do it online. I needed to hear the teacher say it. But it's cool because I have this program that you can hit play and it says it for you. So it's like, so it's pronounced zaleo. Ooh, I like that. And it means to be deeply committed to something with the implication of accompanying desire. So defining zaleo, being zealous, deeply committed to something with the idea of having a strong desire for, to be earnest, to set one's heart on, and to be completely intent on. Can you see how, zaleo, being zealous, and hunger are like hand in hand? Do you see how they're like almost the same word there? It's like to be committed to something. God, I need you 100%. You're the only one that's going to fill me. With the implication of accompanying desire. There it is. In my heart, God, I desire you. I need you. I need you to sustain me. You're the only one who can fill me. To be earnest and to set one's heart. Not just your tummy. It's your heart saying, God, I need you. To be completely intent upon. You think God just wants a casual relationship with you? I mean, He can. He can't. God does care about the little things in your life, but He doesn't just want to talk about the little things in your life. He wants to be a part of all of your life. He wants a deep relationship with you. He wants a zealous relationship with you. For the record, He's sitting there at the door knocking, being like, I want you to answer. I want to spend time with you. I want to eat with you. Will you open this door? He's constantly knocking at your door. God is there. And it's great because it says, draw near to me and I will draw near to you. And it's just like, will you just open the door so we can hang out? But it takes us answering. It takes us desiring. It takes us hungering for that door to be open. Sometimes people ask the question, Luigi, why don't we see miracles? I mean, I hear of all this stuff happening in other parts of the world, but where have they gone? And I'm like, jeepers, just go to the poor places of the planet. I went to a place called El Nilo, El Salvador, which is the poorest part of El Salvador. And El Salvador is a little bit rough just all on its own, but the poorest part. And I'm walking by these places where they have tin houses with 3 walls, not 4. So the letter U with a flat roof on top, and you know water's getting all over there. And it does get cold there as much as it's a warmer country. It does get cold, and it's like, how do you even stay warm? You don't even have a front wall. I can see you all day long. Where do you get changed? You know? And realize that the way they stay warm is by cuddling with their pigs. That's the only thing they have, right? And walking nearby there, and they're like tears in their eyes, okay? And I'm bringing this little bag of beans and rice. And I'm like, well, that'll feed my family for a day. You know, and they're like, this will feed me for over a month. Once I saw the plane coming from this direction at this time of year, I knew it was you guys. And I knew you'd be coming, and I've been praying, and I've been waiting, and the hunger that they had. And I'm telling you, they could care less about the food. They wanted someone to come to where they were at and pray with them. Someone who represented or knew God to just spend time with them and lead them with a conversation about God, how hungry they were. Let me tell you that one of my favorite miracles in my life that I've seen outside of my daughter being resurrected from the dead is seeing this boy who came in with, and I'm not sure if they're stilts, so they kind of like brace here, and they have 2 handles you hold on to, and you kind of do this to help you walk. I'm not sure what they're called, like if they're crutches or anyways. So he came, we were doing an outside service, he sat down, and we had teams. We had like 4 teams, and each team took a turn going up to him being like, can we pray for you? He's like, no, I'm good. No, no, I'm fine. Thank you very much. You know, and he just kept being bothered and bothered and bothered until finally he's like, okay, fine, pray with me. You know, I think he just wanted to be a spectator. He didn't want, and finally he caved it, and the second he gave, okay, all 4 teams surrounded him. Okay, and we began to pray for him. And then someone, while we were praying for him, spoke out at the back and said, get up, walk. Oh, that is courageous. I wonder if we would be courageous enough, leading in the Spirit enough to even be able to say something like that. You're putting yourself out there. I wonder if people here are stretched enough to be able to confidently call something like that out. Someone called, get up and walk. And he's like, are you kidding me? What? They're like, well, what do you got to lose? Give it a try. So he grabs his stilts, he stands up, and it's like, okay, but now you got to give the stilts up. The whole point is, okay, hands the stilts off, is holding on to people, and then people let go. And then he begins to take 1 step in front of the other. And it's shaky and it's terrifying at first, and then it goes with more confidence. And you should see the tears stream down this boy's face. Because by the time he got like 10 paces, he was walking. That night, when we were finally done service, he held his crutches over his head, and he walked. And it was very flat land. It wasn't very hilly. And so I imagine he got like well beyond a kilometer or 2 until, you know, he's just a speck in the distance. But not once did he put his hand down. He held his crutches over his head and walked wherever the heck he was going the entire time. And I was broken. But you know what, like, the response was? It was like hunger. That community that we were in, they were waiting for us. They were like, just like, we want you so, like, here you are in the middle of the street providing a service. We have nowhere that we can worship God. This entire area is run by gangs. We are poor. We have, no one comes out here, and here you are, and we need you. And so prayer was happening everywhere. Like, it's amazing how you can just take like a speaker, drop it in the middle of the street, and like 500 people show up. Like within 5 minutes. I wish my church was kind of like that. Oh, we're full jam back today. I got lots of speakers. Anyways, but they were so hungry, right? The miracles of God, they happen when you're hungry, when you completely depend on Him, when you're at the point where you're like, God, only you can provide. So will you provide? The difference between out there and here is we're rich. We think we got it all. And yet, God looks at our hearts and is like, oh man, you are wretched. You're not in the good condition that you think you're in. Pitiable. If only you would. All right. I think of David, okay? And he wasn't allowed to build the temple. He wanted to build the temple for God. But he had shed too much blood. So God says, it can't be you. It'll be your son. It'll be the people after you. But he saved up. He saved up to build it. Okay, so I'm taking this from 1 Chronicles chapter 14, verse 22. and I'm not sure if I hit save before or after I realized that it was actually 1 Chronicles 22, verse 14. Janice will verify with me in a moment. I realized that I was dyslexic and I changed it. Anyways, 1 Chronicles 14, possibly 22. Just remember 14 and 22. It's either 22 or 14, one or the other. It is 22:14. There you go. So 22:14, ignore my slide. So what I wrote down is that David is so rich, and yet in Psalms 86 he says something that just blows my heart. Verse 14, I have worked hard to provide materials for building the temple of the Lord. Nearly 4,000 tons of gold, 40,000 tons of silver, and so much iron and bronze that it can't even be weighed. So it was cool. I was like, I wonder what gold is worth today. What's a ton of gold? What is 4,000 tons of gold? So I wrote down the numbers for you. 208, I think that's billion, 798,333,333. That's the value of gold that he put towards building one temple of the Lord. It's a lot of money. In silver is 25,853,333,332 dollars. USD, that's USD. So if you think Canadian anyways, you're way out there. Okay? Like what he donated just to build the temple is insane. I just thought it was really cool. I want to let you know the numbers. So it talks about how he has this massive treasury and he's donated this, okay? And he's rich, like the richest guy on the planet. He had it all. God had finally given it to him all, right? And you read Psalm 86 and the very first verse says, hear me, Lord, answer me. For I am poor and needy. Oh, richest guy on the planet, crying out to God, God, please, will you answer me? Will you listen to me? Will you hear me? I am poor and needy. Oh man, can you guys see how important hunger is? Let me explain to you that you hunger for, so I'm back with hunger points here. You crave what you eat. Listen, you're used to having bacon 3 times a week. Sometimes, you hit that third day out of the week and you're just like, I miss bacon. Where's my bacon? But you decide, hey, I'm going to change my lifestyle. And after 5 weeks of eating quinoa and, like eating super, super, super healthy, it takes 5 weeks to build a discipline, just so you know. That's a scientific fact. 5 weeks for you to take something and turn it into a habit, okay? You change your habit after 5 weeks, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, where's my quinoa? This is what I'm used to eating. I had a little bit of lemon, some avocado in there, however you like to eat it anyways. But you do it long enough, you crave it. It's just what happens. You're used to eating fatty foods all the time. It was cool. There's this thing on Netflix about McDonald's where this guy who ate very healthy decided for a certain period of time, all I'm going to do is eat McDonald's. And at first he's like puking and it's just like, oh my goodness, this is disgusting. This is what it's doing to my body. And it's amazing how after about 2-3 weeks, he's like, oh man, did I ever crave French fries? I needed French fries. What made him puke all of a sudden, now he wanted it. He needed it. Okay? And it's amazing because you watch the end of that. I think it's called Super Size Me. And he goes to the doctors. He's like, whatever you're doing, you need to stop because your liver is about to shut down. Anyways, it was a documentary. But it's amazing how just after a certain period of time of continuing to do what you do, how your body craves it. Oh man, if only we would do that with our Bibles. If only we would do that with our relationship with God. If only we would say, all right, I'm going to fast my tiredness or my sleepiness, if you will. And instead of waking up at whatever time you wake up, I'm going to wake up 15 minutes earlier. And I know my body's going to hate me for it as I wake up and be like, oh, it's too early. Some of you are morning people. Go to bed earlier. I don't know. Megan's laughing because I go to bed at 1, 2 in the morning. And I wake up at 9. And you guys are all judging me right now. Wake up a little bit earlier and can be like, I'm going to spend this time with God. And it's going to be hard at first. But it's amazing how after 5 weeks, you'll naturally be waking up. You won't even need an alarm clock. And you get there and just be like, oh man, I'm looking forward to this time with God. I have dedicated this 15 minutes for God. Maybe I should make it 20. When you make something a discipline in your life, so you crave for what you eat. If you feed yourself, if you pay attention to your hunger for God and you depend on Him and you read and you study it's amazing how the second you stop Your body's just like, oh, I miss my time with God. I miss my time reading my Bible. I miss my time. If only we would take the time to discipline ourselves. Can I tell you, I get frustrated because up here, I get to preach at you, right? But I don't get to see you midweek and be like, hey, have you been, I don't get to hold you accountable. I'm looking forward to when this whole COVID mess is over and we get to meet midweek for like midweek programming, and it's like you all show up and we're there and I can challenge you and get messy with your life, and just because I want to build this. I want to build disciplines. I want to build this and hold you guys accountable. I mean, you'll have to admit and you'll have to tell me, I'd like to read my Bible this amount of time this week, so that at least at the end of the week, and be like, have you done it? No, now I get to yell at you or give you a chocolate bar. It's amazing how when you're sick, the first thing that goes is your appetite. Except what do the doctors say? You need to eat. You need to maintain your energy. Same thing spiritually. We get sick. We don't even realize it. Spiritually, we could be sick and don't even realize it. And we get busy and we get distracted and we say, I'm not going to be able to do this week. Sorry, God. I'm just going to have to sideline you. Maybe it'll be better next week. And the second you do that, you don't even realize it. In the same way that your body says, I don't need food right now. Your body, as you ignore God, as you get distracted with other things and fill yourself with other things, will be like, I don't need God this week. You may not say it like that in your mind. It'd just be like, oh, I'm just going through so much. Don't do it. Don't do it. When you're sick and your body says no food, you're like, no, I need food that much more. In the same way, when you're going through struggles in life, you need prayer that much more. It's amazing how someone can miss a week or two of church, and then they disappear off the face of the earth, right? And then if you have a normal conversation with them, be like, hey, where have you been? Where have you been? Well, I missed a couple of weeks. Some stuff was going on, and now I feel kind of ashamed walking in there. And I walk in there and everyone's staring at me, and I don't want everyone to be like, hey, where have you been? And I don't really have a good answer for that. It happens. People feel ashamed coming back. No, this is your home. Come on, this should be your home more than your home. But that's what happens. You begin to sideline things, then you feel ashamed about it. Like it's so true. And then you end up like pushing it away from your life more, which is the opposite of what you should be doing. Psalm 107:9. For he satisfies the thirsty and fills the hungry with good things. Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Can I tell you that you need to protect your hunger? You need to recognize that God created it on purpose. And as you fast, it's a good way for you to remind yourself that your body is just a representation of who you are. But who you are is created soul and spirit in the image of God. And you need Him. You need Him to sustain you. You need give us, Lord, our daily bread. To sustain your soul and your spirit, you must protect your hunger. It's not a bad thing to be hungry, especially when you associate hunger with the spiritual more than the physical. You can skip a meal and your belly going grumble, 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 and you're just like, I need God. I need God. Oh, I want to be like Moses. Spending time with the face of God, not even realizing I'm thirsty or hungry anymore, not even needing it. Wow, God's incredible. Let me read what I wrote for you. There's only one thing that can satisfy your heart. We need to guard our hearts. And your soul, and you are to protect that hunger. People pay big bucks for security to protect what's important to them. And here God is saying, protect your heart. Protect your relationship with Him. Protect your hunger. Don't just let anything in. Don't let other things distract and or fill you. Remain hungry for God. And don't forget that man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. Will you bow your heads and pray with me? Father God, help us to hunger. And help us not to satisfy our hunger with the things of the world. Help us not to just be like, oh, I'm craving this, and feeling like we're rich and we can provide the needs of what we want completely, because what we need is you. What we want is everything else, but what we need is you. Lord, will you remind us that we are pitiable, that we are wretched, that we are even naked and don't even realize it, that our spirits need you to remain healthy, that we need to draw near to you. We need to be answering that door that you are knocking on constantly, saying, let me in. God, may we run to that door, looking for that time with you. May we open it and cherish and relish every moment with you. Our Father, who protects, who teaches, who disciplines. Lord, we need every word that you speak to nourish us. So, Lord, I pray throughout this week when we feel those hunger moments, God, and I pray that they're often and that they're there, that they remind us not about the physical, but the spiritual state that we're in and how badly we need you, Lord. And God, I'll pray for, but I already know your word says, and therefore it is that when we hunger and we draw near to you, oh, you respond, and you respond powerfully, Lord. And so that's what I pray. God, respond to our hunger for you. Respond to our dependency on you, Lord. As we begin to realize that we need every word that you speak, God, will you respond powerfully in our lives so that we can make it a discipline and not look back and not be like, oh, I'm feeling sick and I just don't feel like eating. That we don't get to that state, but that we crave you, Lord, all the time. That the moments where we've missed you for whatever reason are just devastating to us because we need every word that comes from you. God, may our relationship with you grow and grow and grow and never stop growing. May it never be stagnant, Lord. I don't want us to be shallow. I want it to go deep with you, Lord. So God, take us deeper, challenge us, and teach us to protect our hunger. God, will you watch over your people as they go about their week? A lot of snow out there. God, will you watch over as they travel? Will you keep them safe, Lord? Will you speak to them? Speak in their hearts, speak in their ears, speak audibly so they can hear you, Lord. And may they be forever amazed of who you are. Lord, watch over them, protect them in all that they do. In Jesus' mighty name I pray. And everyone said, Amen. May you go hungry this week. God bless you.